Today on Jolene's Books and Writers Talk, we are honored to welcome Dr. Grace M. Davidson, a devoted Christian author and an aspiring Bible teacher. Dr. Davidson brings a wealth of experience to her writing, holding a doctorate of ministry from Beacon University, along with a master's degree in education in counseling and psychology from Troy University. Her extensive background as a registered professional nurse for over 4 decades, her debut book, The Redemptive Story of Christmas, published by her own company, Pelican Scribe, invites readers to explore the profound narrative of Jesus Christ's birth and its enduring significance. In our conversation today, Dr. Davidson will share insights into her writing process, the inspiration behind her first book, and offer valuable advice for aspiring writers. If you or someone you know is a writer of any kind, published or about to be, and would like to be a guest on our show for the coming year, please check out our website, southerndragonpublishing.com, for more information. And now, please join me in welcoming Dr. Grace M. Davidson to the show.
Hi, Jolene. Nice of you to have me. My name is Grace Davidson, and as Jolene said, I hail from North Florida, and I'm excited to be here.
Why don't you answer your first question that you chose?
My first question is, what makes a writer a writer? And my response to that is thinking of myself as a writer. I have been writing for the last 11, 12 years. However, that writing took the form of journal entries, just big things to be cathartic. I like to write when I come home from a heavy day's work. I am a nurse by trade, have been for 45 years. And so I enjoy writing and getting out the negatives at the end of the day. However, I decided to create some writing tendencies. I believe writers have a writer's identity, as I call them. And I can only compare it to nursing, for example. Nursing, you have certain traits as a nurse. You should be compassionate. You should be empathetic. You should be just kind and caring. However, I couldn't wear the title of a registered nurse unless I took it a step further and passed the licensing exams. So I think of writing as having those fundamental traits, the desire to write, the love to write. However, becoming an author was a different story. I wanted to take it the next level. That would be comparative to passing the NCLEX exam so I could be called a registered nurse. That was publishing. And so this year I took it a step further and published. And I'm excited about that.
What's the second question on your list?
The second question on my list, I really answered two right there, because one was, what's the difference between a writer and an author? And to me, a writer could write all day long, have all the love and compassion and all the things, the passion for writing, but never share their work. So an author to me is a person who have taken it a step further and embraced the pain of editing, the pain of restructuring and doing all the hard work to share their work, whether it's journal article or a book or just writing fiction versus nonfiction. They have just totally taken it to another level. And that's the difference there. So what inspired me to write my book was volunteering. I was serving others through Samaritan's Purse, and it's a very broad entity. They do Doctors Without Borders and all that sort of a thing. And I was working with Operation Christmas Child, serving other people, packing gift boxes ready to ship to the country of Chad. And when I looked, they would stop in between packing the boxes and show you the people in that region. When I saw how the boxes that the shoe boxes that we were packing to send, when they got there, how people came to the dock where the ship had those items to deliver to the different pastors or the different churches in that region. And I saw how they carried the boxes on donkeys and people just carrying them on their backs, any means necessary. They were getting those shoe boxes to distribute in their little towns and villages. This is impressive. So I thought sharing was so important to me, volunteering. And that was when a friend of a friend invited me to read Luke 2 for Christmas. And I was so busy doing that, worrying about getting back home after serving and then being with my family for Christmas. I have one grandchild who was born Christmas Eve and one was born Thanksgiving. So holidays is really a huge family time for us. And I was thinking of all different things I had to do. But finding time to give back and to share, and then taking this moment to look at the whole redemptive story of Christmas was so broad to me that I decided to share what I was learning from reading, taking some downtime to relax after serving others. But it was through that volunteerism and seeing how people thrive in situations where they have nothing just gave me that motivation to share what I was doing with others as well.
And what would you like to talk about next?
The next question I want to talk about is a writer's block. What does it mean to me? It's a common phenomenon where a writer have a lapse in moment in inspiration, a lack of inspiration. That person might just be too hard on themselves or have too high an expectation, or they are just stumped, no ideas that are coming forth. I know in my writing process, I have so many thoughts going through my mind that I have to make notes on the side. However, there are times in a writing process where I literally have to set the work aside and take a break, whether it's for a couple of hours or a couple of days. That's so important. But in a writer's block, I've seen where some of the characters have gone to Europe or someplace, a change of environment to get stimulated by the people they're surrounded with and the activities, the change of activity to stimulate their writing process. For me, I just sit and I'll brainstorm, just write, let it flow. Whatever comes to mind, I just write it. And sometimes that's enough to break that block. Or sometimes you just have to step away. So writer's block just sometimes freely comes and it freely goes.
Okay. That's a good explanation. Now let's move on to the next subject.
The question is, are there therapeutic benefits of modeling the character of someone I know? And in terms of writing, there is a character that I modeled unconsciously because she impacted my nursing career. I never met her, and yet I emulated some of the traits that she possessed. She was a healer. She received a certain level of education that was not as exhaustive as I received in my nursing career. However, she impacted the world. And so that was beneficial to me because it helped to bring about a certain self-awareness. What would you like to be remembered for at the end of your time? And I think about her. She was a motivator to help me want to write something about her story. She was a writer in a time when it was unheard of for women to be writing. She was actually from Jamaica. She left a huge legacy that impacted nursing and the story of nursing. Who was the first person from the Caribbean? If you ask anyone, she's not very well known, but her story was redeemed and shed light upon. In 2012, she was voted the greatest Black Britain person. And I really realized that I love that character. She meant a lot to me. She was therapeutic in my values because she did the best she could. She had a lot of experience. She really impressed me. Of course, her counterpart is huge in impressing all of us as nurses. But because she was a native of the Caribbean, she impacted me differently. Her character impacted me very differently. It was home, and I'm familiar with her background and everything. And I'm still flabbergasted by how brave this person was in a time when it was even disallowed for women to be in the street unaccompanied. And she just so gracefully navigated her travels and very choicey about her companions who traveled, but yet she could defend herself and defend what she did and was very good at what she did in saving lives. And so that is a character that was very therapeutic for me.
Which person, alive or dead, anywhere throughout history, would you like to have a dinner conversation with? Whether they're an author, a politician, a doctor, whatever. Who would you like to ask questions of?
Okay. Is there any person I'd like to have a conversation with over dinner?
Yes.
In terms of writing, two are the most impressive. I would say Robert McKee. He authors so many books, but because I'm learning to write, I like his books on story, characters, and dialogue, because I just did not know how to think in terms of building a character arc and how to make dialogue come about. All I know is medical stuff. I don't know how to make a conversation happen. And through reading his books, I learned to involve the smell, the taste, the sight, all this stuff. So I would definitely would like to have a dinner conversation with McKee. My second preference, which is Malcolm Gladwell. He lives in Canada. I know he works with the New Yorker. I know his work with David and Goliath is a redemptive in nature because he talks about the underdogs, how the underdogs find ways to market their products, and he uses all these research and scenarios. But the one that helped me the most was having to do with the outliers and the 10,000 hours. The Tipping Point was the title of his book. And he talked about the 10,000 hours. His research was on different sports figures and characters who completed 10,000 hours. And for me, I just have to think of Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, all those folks to become the stars that they are, the very best at their sports. They put in hours and hours of practice. So in 2011, I decided to start measuring the number of hours that I would put into writing. If I came home after a 12-hour shift and I could only put in 30 minutes, I put in 30 minutes. If I was off on a day and I finished my chores and I could write for 4 hours, I wrote for 4 hours. Some days I would get up early in the morning and write. Now that I'm not working full time, I am more structured and I could set blocks of times on my calendar. I'll wake up in the morning, do my morning routine, and go work out. By the time I get back, I am going to write for the 3 or 2 hour block that I have set up. So I know that it is important to whatever a man sets out to achieve, to set hours for it.
Let's talk a little bit about your book. I wanted to get a feel for what is your ideal reader for your book? Who are you trying to reach? And is it nonfiction, fiction? Tell us what you would like for your book to be known as.
I would like for the redemptive story of Christmas to be known as a book that helps readers to become more aware of Christ as their Redeemer. That he came, that he died, that he was resurrected, and that he's still available to mankind, regardless of your situation, your position in life. He is there for you, and it's not necessarily the 25th of December. He is there 24/7. You have access to him. So in this little book, it just encompasses a few verses. The audience that it should attract firstly, most likely, is Christians or Christ followers. But on the other hand, I would love for readers that have nothing to do with church or Christianity to just say, out of curiosity, let me get a copy of that. Or let me pull this up on Kindle. It's an easy read, 100 pages. I would hope that the historical impact might just impress them to say, these people were alive, because so many people think the Bible is made up. It's just another book of prose and story. And it's not, there's no scientific proof that these people, these characters existed, that this is something that promises eternal life or any of that. However, I did extensive research and I found out that these wars in Rome, they occurred. The characters were alive and well in the first century. There were men who prophesied and spoke about the coming of this Redeemer. However, because of the wars and the Babylonian captivity and all of that, actually, there's proof that those things happened. They would pass the narrative on to their children that we were held in captivity, that we suffered, and there is a kinsman redeemer who is coming out of this lineage. Luke was instrumental in tracing that lineage all the way back to Adam, whereas Matthew traced it back to David and stopped going back to a shorter narrative, a shorter historical lineage. But Luke took it all the way back to Adam. I'm not looking at the pages of the book right now, but Luke took it all the way back, and I really admired that about him. And I was very impressed that here is a man named Theophilus who wanted some verification that these things did happen.
So it's a nonfiction book.
Oh, yeah.
That's fine. I just wanted to get clarification. This is a nonfiction book. It is about the history of Luke and Matthew telling the story, the Christmas story.
Yes, it is a nonfiction. It is a narrative that can be verified because it goes back to first century life, and the resources are there where I did a lot of research to support that. It is widely for the Christian audience. However, I would love non-Christians, out of curiosity, read and to understand that it's there for them. The whole redemptive process is open to all mankind, and it's free for all. Salvation is free.
What advice would you give to an author who doesn't know what to do with all that writing they've been doing? Name 3 good tips.
3 good tips or suggestions to authors who have been writing and don't know what to do with it. Depending on the type of writing, you might want to lock it up, put it away. I journal a lot because journaling for me is cathartic. And my daughter looks at my little chest and she says, I can't wait to get into that. And so I was glad she said that to me, because some of the more painful experiences that I've gone through, I have started to shred them, because she doesn't need to know some of my pain. I may write about it at some point because I'm tempted to write about single parenting. It's nothing that I wish anyone to have to go through, but it's a choice. And we all make choices. So some of those painful experiences and tough decisions and the work, the sacrifices, I like to journal them, but they're not for anyone else. They're just cathartic for me. And they're all adults. They don't need to know my pain. They have theirs. My next suggestion would be to compile them in a way that you could share them with others. You never know. The redemptive story of Christmas is just a chapter in Luke. I involved the first 2 chapters and got 100 pages out of it. So if you are like me, I can never read a book. I study a book. And that is why I compiled it into something, because I had a desire to share. So if you have a desire to share what you're writing, I suggest that you do that. Amazon is a wonderful gift, because self-publishing, you don't have to worry about trying to get a manuscript and sending it out to all these publishers and getting rejections after rejections. So that process of sharing is much easier. And thanks to publishers like you, Jolene, who have been very helpful to me. So the third suggestion, what would be my third suggestion? First was boxing it, then 2, sharing it, and 3, I really am stumped.
How about not giving up?
Not giving up. That is perfect, because you have to just keep pushing through. I want to start. I started another story in 2023. It's short, and these 2 short pieces are my not giving up pieces. So that's perfect, because the real story I want to write about is a novel that I alluded to earlier. That would be a legacy moment for me. But I don't know where to begin with it because of the depth. I make everything hard. I want to go back into the history. I am a historical novelist or writer. I love historical articles, historical fiction, historical movies, that kind of a thing. I am not one who just writes something and it has to mean something to me. So if it means something to you, you are going to keep plugging away at it. You are going to, I would say, pants it, or, they have either plotter or pantser. Whichever you are, just don't give up. I would encourage you to keep writing and share your work as you go. Have someone look at it. I had my sister look at this, the first piece of publishing in December, and she looked over it and she was honest. She said, sis, I like this, but there's some changes you have to make. Then I had another friend look at some of it and she gave me good feedback. I think the timelines are a little mixed in. Clarify that. And so I welcome feedback during the writing process. Have people around you. Surround yourself with people who are positive, who would give you honest feedback, who will motivate you, and be there to cheer you at the end when you accomplish your goal. So those are my 3 suggestions.
Very good.
Maybe I need to answer another question. How would I deal with processing negative reviews? Ooh, that's a tough one. But receiving negative feedback is inevitable. But they can help you improve your skills, and you just have to learn to ask your readers to be gentle. You're going to get reviews if you put your book out there like on Amazon. I would welcome reviews. But I ask, if you give me reviews, please sandwich it between a compliment. Just put the negative in the middle, have something positive here, something positive there, and just gently tell me. Of course, you're going to have readers who are angry at something you said. Be prepared. It's very important that writers prepare themselves for negative feedback. It's inevitable. But how you cope with it, you might just, I don't care. It's water in a duck's back. They're welcome to say what they want to. But I am the writer. I finished my story the way I wanted. I have a voice. And that's a hard thing, to find your voice while you're writing. You have to find your voice. And when you do find it, you're going to express it in a meaningful way. A lot of writing, people are just trying to express themselves because it's a productive way to do it, really. Rather than going out and doing something dumb, you put it on paper and produce it. So people have a choice whether they read it or don't read it. So I think it's very good to get feedback. It's essential in writing, and it should never be taken for granted, especially when it's constructive feedback.
Yes. Do not engage with the haters.
No.
Just ignore them.
Thank you for that advice. I will need it. I never know.
So thank the good ones, ignore the bad ones, and take the constructive ones with you for the next time.
That's sound advice. Thank you for having me, Jolene.
You're welcome, Miss Grace. And I'm sure we're going to do this again next year when you publish again.
I'm sure. I look forward to it.
All righty. That was a pretty good show. I hope you enjoyed it. And please subscribe, make comments, and follow us along on our next adventure. If you would like to be a guest on our podcast, we do have openings for the new year coming up. Check my website, southerndragonpublishing.com, for more information. See you next time.